right? He's indicating I'm not the guy who's afraid to show interest. I don't make apologies for my desires as a man. I'm okay with my desires as a man. And that is attractive. That is attractive to a point. To a point. So take a girl that's like standards aren't very high or doesn't get hit on a lot, or a guy that just finds this guy inherently attractive from the first moment. She may love it that the guy showed interest, and that may come off as very attractive. She may even consider, oh, he's so confident. He's so confident he doesn't hide his interest, that sort of a thing. So to a point, it is attractive. However, to the point that we just discussed with the whole job interview metaphor and all that kind of stuff, it's also unattractive because you're giving your power away, right? And so this is almost the definition of a leveling behavior, right? I'll talk to you guys really quickly as a little side note segue what leveling is. But it's almost the definition of a leveling behavior. It's indicating that you as a man are at a certain place on the value hierarchy. You're not so low down that you're totally afraid to show intent. You're not a guy who never gets laid or a guy who's like scared of sex, right? Which already is putting you probably in the top, half of guys or beyond, right? So it is showing some attractive qualities, right? And if you do that, you are setting yourself apart from, this sea of chodes that can't even show any interest. So maybe that behavior, let's say the hey, I think you're cute. Maybe that behavior is leveling you as a man at about a 7, 7.5, right? Maybe even an 8, right? It's not so bad. It's not bad at all. Some girls may even be really flattered by it and may even compliment you on it. They'd be like, I love the fact that you just came up and told me you liked me. That was so brave. That was so cool, right? So let's say it's leveling you at an 8. Girls that are like a 7, 7.5, 6.5, they're gonna fucking love you for that. They're gonna be all over you for that. Because you've just said, hey, I'm an 8. And they're like, oh, this guy is higher value than me, but within a range of value that I can kind of trust, automatically, I love that. He's right in my wheelhouse. He's exactly the type of guy I'm looking for. And they're gonna love it. They're gonna be attracted to you for it. However, take a girl who's a 9, and you walk up to her, and the first words out of your mouth are like, hello, I'm an 8. Like, that's excellent. Have a wonderful day, 8. I hope things work out well for you, right? And you're gonna get just total blasé, probably just not even any reaction whatsoever. Like she'll be pleasant. She'll be like, oh, that's very sweet. Thank you. I'm flattered. I have a boyfriend. I think I'm very. I'm in a hurry, but thank you. Thank you so much. You're very sweet. Good. Thank you for trying. I appreciate the confidence. Right? You're gonna get that kind of like very condescending, dismissive. I appreciate it, but kind of an answer, right? Because fundamentally, you've just said, I'm interested and I'm unworthy of you in the same sentence. Okay? So that's the issue with this type of behavior. And it will work to a point, and it'll stop working at a point. And that's what's so confusing and frustrating about game and these leveling behaviors is the very same thing that started out working for you and the very same thing that got you to a certain level fundamentally is keeping you at that level, right? And you're going to have to unlearn it, and you're going to have to realize what it is. And so literally, you haven't established relevance, right? You haven't established relevance, okay? So what is premise? Premise is what type of interaction it is. It's the context of the interaction. It's not the content of the interaction, okay? So the context is I'm interested, but the content is maybe I'm disinterested, or I'm marginally interested, or I'm not sure, okay? But it is this type of interaction. And so that's the sort of like subtlety of game that trips guys up and keeps them at this like intermediate level, is that they learn they need to show intent, because if they don't show intent, they don't get anywhere. And the way they learn to show intent is the simplest possible way, the crutch, which is, hey, I like you. Hey, you're cute. Hey, whatever. Or to just get very physical. That's another form of it, right? Here's another question. Is getting physical attractive? Yes and no for the exact same reason, right? If you are scared to get physical, that's massively unattractive. If you're willing to get physical, that's attractive. It shows some balls, right? Even beyond that, if you want to go to a higher level, if you are willing to get attractive and willing to get physical and you're good at getting physical, that's even more attractive. So let's say that not being able to be physical levels you at like a 5, right? 5 or below, right? Probably not getting very many girls at all. Getting physical maybe puts you in the 6 to 7.5 range. You're willing to get physical, right? Then the next level up is you're willing to get physical and you're actually pretty good at it. Like you're a little bit smooth about your escalation. And it actually like kind of feels good to the girl a little bit. That's when you're at that like 7.5 to like 8.5 range, right? But even there, and I talked to you about this a little bit where I said you're like being a little too obvious, right? Even there, at that 9 and 10 range is just obvious to them. And even if it feels good physically maybe, but emotionally it's not validating for them because they know they can have you and it's not a win, right? The girl wants having sex with you to be a win. Girl wants going on a date with you to be a win. Girl wants bragging to her friends about you to be a win, right? And so when you're too obvious, when they've already won, there's nothing left to win, so there's no reason to have sex with you, no reason to go on a date with you, no reason to pursue it, okay? So this is the fundamental difference, right? And so that's where all these kind of like gamey tactics kind of come in. That's where things like push-pull come in. So the real question, the fundamental question you have here is, how do I establish a premise without giving my value away? And that's the high-level question, right? The low-level question is, how do I just have the balls to show intent, right? And once, if you are, for anybody who is scared of just telling a girl that you like her, just do it, right? Just tell her you like her. That's a good start. Once you're emotionally okay with that, though, let's get a little more sophisticated. Let's get a little more subtle, right? And that's when you're going to sort of have power in your game. So things like, again, push-pulls. I like you, but I'm not so sure. Much stronger than I like you no matter what, right? Or even things like disqualifiers. Because here's a crazy thing. Disqualifying a girl also establishes a premise. Do you understand that? If you're saying you and I would not get along, you're establishing a premise because of the assumption underlying it. The assumption that whether you and she get along matters. Or when a girl says to you, I'm not going to have sex with you tonight, right? She's establishing a sexual premise, even if she's saying it in the negative, because the very fact that she's saying it means it's on her mind, right? But in terms of keeping your power, how much more powerful is it to say, I'm not sure if we're going to get along, versus I love you unconditionally? So that's what we're going to try and do here is to come up with more subtle ways of establishing a premise. And there are tons of little, they go from like the very obvious, I want to fuck you, is like the most, I want to establish, like the most establishing a premise and most obvious, to I like you but I'm not so sure, is a little more subtle, to something that's pure negative, we're not going to get along, that's more subtle. Then there's really, really subtle ones. For example, hi, I'm Todd, nice to meet you. That's a very subtle form of establishing a premise, right? Because if we're just two strangers talking casually, why do we care about meeting each other? Why is my name an important factor, right? So even in a subtle way, not that it's even like the best one to use, but in terms of subtlety, it's a very, very small way of establishing a premise, okay? Here's a really, really interesting one. Let's say, what kind of music are you into?
Rock.
I don't like rock, man. I like country. That's what I'm into. Not actually, but anyway. But the point is that I disagreed with you. Disagreeing with you actually establishes a premise in a very small way because I cared enough to disagree with you. I didn't just go along with you, right? And so there's all these little tiny subtle things you can be doing to establish a premise. Now, at some point, the premise should be pretty overt. At some point in the interaction, the premise, it should be pretty obvious that you're having an interaction where it is man to woman. And it's pretty obvious that you are evaluating whether you're going to maybe have sex with her or take her home with her or take her on a date. But in getting there, there's nothing wrong with starting with these extremely very subtle ones, like disagreeing a little bit, like introducing yourself, like a little tiny disqualifier, those kind of things. The problem is that most guys, when they do this rapport comfort phase, what happens is they kill all the tension, right? They make it very obvious that they like the girl a lot and the girl likes them a lot, and it just becomes way too comfortable. And you don't want it to be that comfortable. You want that little bit of tension and discomfort throughout, right? And people think of comfort in the wrong way. People think of comfort as having a commonality with a girl, or just spending time and sharing vulnerability with a girl and that kind of stuff. Here's the actual comfort you want. You want the girl to be comfortable that when she goes and becomes your girlfriend or has sex with you or whatever, that it's a win for her rather than a loss. That's the comfort you want. You don't want her to feel comfortable that she will always feel good around you, right? If you guys, who's the hottest girl in the world for you? Someone shout out a name. Hottest girl in the world.
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence. Okay, cool. So, okay, we're in this room here, and for you, you say Selena Gomez or something like that, right? So, okay, so we're here. All of a sudden, Selena Gomez and Jennifer Lawrence walk into this room, and they're standing here, in front of you guys. How do you guys feel in that moment?
Horny.
Horny. Yeah. Does anybody feel nervous? Yeah?
Yeah.
Right? You guys feel a little nervous, right? That's how girls should feel around you. Okay? They should feel a little nervous. If they get too comfortable, that's a problem. Okay? Now, you don't want them to feel like they're in physical danger. And you do want them to trust you, right? Because that's part of feeling like that going home with you won't be a loss either. And they shouldn't feel like if they go home with you, they're going to be mistreated or like abused or ignored or whatever, right? They need to have a certain level of trust. But the fundamental thing, comfort-wise, that they need is they need to be comfortable they're making a good decision. Not that they need to make a decision that's going to lead them to feel comfortable the whole time. Do you see that distinction? All right? A little bit of discomfort, a little bit of tension is a good thing. If the tension goes away entirely, that's when you get girls that you get them home and they're like, you know what, let's just go on a date instead. And quite frankly, that's when you get like LMR too. Because they liked you, but then they aren't motivated enough to make a strong decision in your favor, and so you become the pushy one again. Okay? So getting too comfortable is a problem, right? So I agree with this rapport stuff. I agree with building commonality, and there is value to all of it, and we can talk about that as we go through the program. But just do know that comfort per se, in the sense of making her feel relaxed and comfortable, is not something you necessarily want all the way. So a lot of people, when you talk about breaking rapport, there's a very big difference between breaking rapport and being offensive. Or breaking rapport, worse yet, breaking rapport and being insulting. I don't say never very often. I'm as close to never as I can think of insulting in set. I'm not insulting. Now, I say some like shit that could be offensive sometimes. I say some polarizing stuff for sure, but I'm actually not insulting. Right? I would never say to a girl like, your nose is ugly. Yeah. Right? Things like that would never come out of my mouth. Right? I might say, you have a very interesting look. And it might imply that you're not the most attractive or something like that. But if I were ever called out on anything I say, like I could always defend it. Right? So if I say you have a very interesting look, she's like, that's insulting. But like, no, actually, I thought it was a compliment. Okay, fine, you have a boring look. I take it back. Right? So you can always kind of whatever. Or like if I say, you're actually not so bad after all, right? Wait, that's offensive. You thought I would make a bad impression, or you thought I'd be not cool or whatever? No, actually, just most people disappoint me. You've done better than average so far, right? So anything that I say, as much as it may have that effect of giving her that like little kick in the stomach socially, it's never actually offensive. It's always defensible. Okay, and I think that's very important for two reasons. One, because you can always say, I'm sorry, you can always explain it away. That's me. So you can always explain it away, you can always figure it out that way, but also it works better. The more subtle it is, the better it works, right? So
can you give like an example of one of like the ultra subtle version of that?
I'll give you a general idea, which is levels of the same. Take the like most classic line in game ever. You and I would not get along, right? So here's not subtle at all, and like very polarizing and also not subtle. You and I would not get along, right? So it's very much. I made the entire conversation about that one thing, right? And then I delivered it, and there was nothing after it, and then I like paused to make sure it got a reaction, right? That's the ultimate not subtle, right? Here's very subtle. What I love about this guy's look over here is like he's like just very chill, very relaxed. Just like to see, you and I are not gonna get along, but see him over here, he's like just. There's something about him just looks like rich and posh. It's very nice. Okay. Yeah. You see the difference there? It's such a non-event. Yeah. It's still for you.
Still picking up on it.
Yeah, for you, you're still gonna notice it. But it seems like I wasn't trying to get a reaction. Anything I do trying to get a reaction, automatically you're gonna try and resist giving me a reaction on it. But something that seems like I just threw it off as this nonchalant, unintentional thing, it's actually gonna get a bigger reaction. Also, by the time you react to it, I'm 3 seconds into the next conversational thread. So if you do react to it in a negative way, you're really try hard to be like, wait, go back. What was that thing you said about me? But it's so very clearly reactive, right? And so the subtlety of the delivery and also the fact that it wasn't made the forefront of the conversation makes it so much more powerful. And that's the big thing with like back in the day, like negs and all this kind of stuff. Everybody delivers them wrong. Everybody delivers them so badly, right? They're like I can just think of a million of them, but like da 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 da. You blink a lot, right? No, it's like talk. You blink a lot anyway, and you drop your phone a lot. But anyway, back on topic, et cetera, right? So the more nonchalant it is, the more it's just an offhanded thing, the more effective it is, and also the less leveling it is. Because if you look like you're trying to get a reaction, if you look like you have an outcome, that's needy and that's low value, right? So all these things that you're doing that have a very clear outcome to them, they are done for a very clear reason and intention, should look casual and accidental. And the more that you can just be casual, accidental, blasé in the way that you convey yourself, the more high value and powerful you're going to be.
So those things that you just mentioned, subtle disqualifiers,
Uh-huh.
are they part of building the premise or part of building the premise?
They're all of it. So if I disqualify you, so if I said you and I are not going to get along, or you and I are not going to make the sex tonight, or don't get any ideas, all those things imply a relationship between us. Don't get any ideas means that it would make sense for you to get ideas, which implies a relationship, right? You and I are not going to get along implies that you would care whether we get along, right? We're not going to make the sex tonight implies you're thinking about sex. So even though they're in the negative, they are establishing that premise of relationship, right? So that's partly in the premise. That said, they can also be in qualification too, because part of qualifying is disqualifying. You don't want to be this guy that's like, this is the other problem with like old school structured game, right? It was like attraction and then comfort, and this is like strong divide between the two. So it's like I'm establishing value. Now I'm giving it all back. The problem there is, number one, it's massively incongruent, right? I'm this high value, unattainable guy, and then all of a sudden I'm like this little pussy that like will do anything for you. It's very weird, right? Now, ideally, maybe you're trying to give it back little by little, but even then you have a problem, which is what if you go too far? What if you give just a little bit too much back and now you're lower value than her and now you're like, no, wait, I'm high value again, and you start being a dick again. Now it's just become very clear what you're doing. It's become very clear that you're manipulative, right? So what you want to be doing throughout is it's not this like high value and no comfort or no connection, no trust, whatever word you want to use for it. And then all of a sudden, all this like sappy, crunchy, politically correct, nice shit. It's my opinion of being nice, apparently. And no being a dickhead or no having any value or standards. What it is basically is you're always a nice person and you're always a person with standards. But at the start, you're really establishing the standards and really letting them know about the standards. Later on, you're letting them in on your nice side, but you just do subtly keep communicating you have standards. You never drop that, right? So maybe you are 80% just being nice to them because you've agreed you like each other, but every now and again you give them this little reminder. So maybe you're in quote unquote comfort with a girl, right? And you're having this nice little connecty conversation, and the girl says something you really don't like. And the part of you that's thinking, oh, this is the comfort part of game and I need to be nice, just lets it slide. That's not what you should do. You should be like, actually, I'm really actually kind of turned off that you just said that. Sorry. Like, I'm going to try and ignore it because I'm actually really enjoying this conversation, so I'm just going to pretend you didn't, but like, just take that back. Just like, it'll be better. Like, just please, just unsay that, right? Like, you do want to still give them that little push away. You do still kind of want to let them know, right? In fact, there are some things that, like, sometimes that can be one of the most powerful things you'll do in a set. Say you have a girl that's kind of on the fence. She's like, she really likes you. She might sleep with you. She might not. And then you basically dismiss her, right? At some point, even you're in comfort. Things are going really well. And you just look at her and be like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I really like you, but I'm just feeling something off. I'm sorry. Let's just finish this drink and then we can, I don't know, we'll figure it out. Right? Just out of nowhere, you just say that to a girl. Imagine the effect. Like, imagine if a girl did that to you. You've been hanging out with this girl for like 3 hours in the club. It's going so well. You feel like you really have a connection with her and she's so hot. And you're like, for sure it's happening. And then that. Well, how would you react to that? How would you feel at that moment, right? How much more would you chase her after that moment than you were before, right? Girls are going to react the same way, but like 5 times as much.
At the end of the interaction, how do you take it from there and be congruent instead of leading her out and taking her home?
So you're not saying you don't like her at all. You're just saying you're not sure anymore. Or that like you liked her a lot and now it's kind of like she kind of ruined it a little bit. Right? Does that make sense? But you're not insulting her. You're not saying she's trash. You're not saying I'm no longer attracted to you. Right? In fact, with attractive girls, I'm very open with the fact that they're attractive. I don't care. I don't say, oh, you're so hot, like I'm overwhelmed by it. But I'll acknowledge it, like, yeah, like, for example, like, you're a cute girl, but da-da-da-da-da. Or, like, maybe I'll say, like, I don't want us to make the sex tonight. It's that little spiel that I do, which I'll tell you guys later. Not that you're not attractive. Like, you're very, like, and I'm sure that, I mean, maybe you're a starfish in bed, but probably the sex would be quite good, you know. I'm just not ready necessarily. So I'm never completely eliminating it. I'm never saying, like, sex is completely off the table. Because remember, what's the second stage? Establish a premise. Once you've established the premise, you don't want to just obliterate the premise later. You want to keep the premise. But think of it the job interview, right? You're going through the job interview. You're kind of like asking, buying questions, letting her know maybe she's getting the job. And maybe she answers a question wrong, and all of a sudden she feels like, oh shit, she just lost the job, right? Doesn't mean you can't still hire her. It's just like you've been given pause.
What do I do wrong? How do you go about that? If she keeps...
I mean, if you want to get into it, you can, or you can be like, don't worry about it. Just do you. Honestly, like if we like each other for who we are, that's great. If we don't, then, you know, I wouldn't want to like you for someone you're not. So just be you, and we'll see. Does that make sense? Right? It's very confusing for her, but that kind of thing. Or if she really did something that you really don't want her to do in future, you actually could tell her. You'd be like, listen, it's just a particular thing with me, but I really don't like it when people do this particular thing. So it just kind of turned me off, but it's not a big deal. And the reason you would do that isn't even necessarily for a game reason. It's more for a relationship reason, which is that from the very beginning of game, from the beginning of meeting her, you're not only picking her up, you're also training her to be the type of girlfriend you want. So you're indicating to her what you're into, what you like, and how she can best please you. So if she does something that actually, you know, makes the experience less good for you, or indicates or moves towards a type of relationship you don't want, that's when you actually should not only say that thing as a disqualifier, but actually mean it and actually be willing to explain it, right? Because then you're telling her, you know, how to be. So for example, certain girls, let's say a certain girl was raised very like prim and proper, but she's very capable of being sexually open, right? Now, when she meets you as a guy and she decides you're high value and wants to impress you, she may try and impress you by being what her parents told her to be, which is prim and proper, or she may try and impress you by being adventurous. But if she doesn't know what type of guy you are, she doesn't know which role to play. So say she like plays the prim and proper role and that's not what you like, you might actually tell her, you might disqualify her on that, and as a not like game year disqualifier, a real actual disqualifier, right? That, you know what, that's like, I don't know, you seemed so adventurous before and I really like that. That was, honestly, what you just said was a little prudish. I don't know. I mean, I still like you, but that was kind of a turnoff, to be honest, right? You just tell her that, like flat out tell her, right? And one, it's great in games because it's a disqualifier, but two, you are telling her you don't want a prudish girlfriend, right? You're letting her know how to impress you. And if she's smart and if she likes you, she will start acting the other way, right? Because she's capable of both. She has both personalities inside of her, but with one boyfriend, she'll act one way, with another boyfriend, she'll act the other way, because he's indicated, this is how you impress me. This is how you create the relationship that we have together, right? A relationship is history and narrative.